Hello and welcome to the Sober Bartender podcast, the show where we recover from life. I'm your host, Brandy Kelly. I have a question for you today, so I want you to give it some good thought as you listen along and take some time after you listen and do some quiet contemplation if this topic relates to you. Is your sobriety a secret? I've never been anonymous, and here's why. So this topic came up the other day. I just got done with, I think it was like 11 hours on the bev cart out on the golf course. You know, there was a tournament. There was a bunch of guys that were out there. And when the tournament was over, I was over reloading my cart to head back out, and they called me over and said, "Oh, come here." And I thought maybe I was going to get a tip, and they pulled out little plastic shot glasses, and they pulled something out of their golf bag and was pouring it in. And in that moment, I said, "Oh, thank you so much, but I don't drink." "Oh, you can have one." And I said, "I could, but no, thank you." "Why not? You can have it." And I said, "I'm sober. I'm almost 3 years sober. I don't drink. I appreciate it, but no." And, they turned it into joking, and, it was a big laugh fest and wasn't that big of a deal. But if I was brand new in sobriety and I hadn't said to myself and others over and over and over, "I don't drink. I'm in recovery. I'm sober." It used to be, "I'm an alcoholic," or, there are so many different ways that I've phrased it that it is cemented in my being that I know I don't drink. Not just this one time, not, when no one's looking, not if I can get away with it. It's just something that I don't do because it's an agreement with myself. So it's not for a sponsor or for this podcast or for my family or for my husband or for this little dog right here. It's for me. And that's why it works. So it kind of got me thinking, when I first stopped drinking, I did tell people, because leading up to me stopping drinking, I was saying that I was, that I had a problem with my drinking and that I needed help. And so when I went to detox, I did let my immediate circle know where I was going. And my immediate circle did include like my Coke dealer, and it did include my boss, and his boss needed to know that also. And a lot of my regulars in the bar, like I let people know where I would be so that when I came back, I didn't know what to expect because I didn't know how to live without alcohol. But it made sense that I needed people to know that I was coming back different and it wasn't just another Tuesday. And so thinking back to that time, had I not, I don't know if I would have even made it through the first week behind the bar as a sober bartender if I hadn't just let people know what I was going through. So have you ever heard the joke, like, how do you know a guy who does CrossFit, or how do you know a person's vegan? And they're like, "Oh, because they tell you within the first 15 seconds of meeting them." That was me for like my first 4, 5, 6 months sober. Like it wouldn't even come up and I was bringing it up, and it was just getting used to it in my head. Because at first it was just until I got a handle on things, and then I realized that I was never going to have a handle on my drinking. Like there was never going to be a time that I was going to drink like I saw other people drink. I wasn't going to be able to just have 2 drinks and then not have more drinks. And I may be able to do that, but I would want more. And I would think about more, and I would have to think about how I wasn't going to have more. And, there's still just that mental obsession that kind of differed me from from a lot of people. So, yeah, it's interesting because when you enter into, 12-step recovery, it's called Alcoholics Anonymous because you're supposed to be anonymous, right? And I never got that because I'm like, well, how are you supposed to know where to go? Or like, what's the point in being a secret? And it did end, like the whole concept of anonymity does make sense. Like they say, you don't want to go around telling people that you got sober in AA, because then if you drink again, if you fail, then it sounds like the program failed. And, it does save people's lives. So they don't want any individual to go around being a representative of the group as a whole and as of the program as a whole. So that makes sense to me, right? But me personally, I never called anyone else out for being in the program or be like, oh, that's so-and-so from a meeting. But me personally, I just never had that piece. I was never anonymous. I've been loud and proud about the fact that I'm sober because it's my greatest accomplishment, because it was my biggest burden and it was my biggest setback and it was my biggest challenge. And so walking through that and overcoming that, I'm going to be honest about it. I'm going to be real about it. And so yeah, I think about it, especially as a bartender. So, if there's bartenders out there that are thinking like, oh, I want to get sober, but I don't want my regulars to know. I always do shots with my regulars, doing those fake shots, that's not doing you any favors. Because then, let's say you go into work, you have your normal routine, Joe, Dick, and Harry are sitting there and they're used to you getting there and doing your little cheers and throwing your shot back. So that may be a comfort zone for them, but for you, that's that same pattern. And so that's still activating in your mind and in your being that same pattern. And so that's not changing any behaviors for you. And so that's still happening in your mind. That's still happening in your mind. So being honest with those guys gives you a chance to have a different kind of connection, because it's not about what they're doing or how much they're drinking or what their life is like. It's about our own internal process. I hear so many people, just say that they don't want anyone to know. But the thing that blows my mind is that people that are around you or that interact with you when you're drinking already know that you have a drinking problem. We get so ashamed. We feel like it's defeat and nobody likes a quitter. And, there's so much stigma on being an alcoholic or on being an addict. But a lot of that is changing. The game is changing. I mean, they've changed the verbiage from alcoholism as being a disease to alcohol abuse disorder. It's not it's not medically classified in the DSM any longer as a disease. It's a disorder. It's an addictive substance. And then there's usually pretty frequently some underlying trauma that is associated with that heavy drinking. But I feel like it was worth saying that, I've never been anonymous. I am loud. I am shouting from this podium that I have here. Because I think other people need to know that we can be sober as bartenders. We can be sober as servers, as, food industry people. Because it's an industry that normalizes heavy drinking and partying, and nobody really bats an eye, when somebody gets a DUI. Most bartenders know 20, 50, 100 people who have gotten a DUI. And that's normal. And, that's not normal to people who aren't heavy drinkers. That's not normal to people who don't drink and drive every day. So, yeah, I personally feel like the more people that you communicate with, the less places you have to hide. So if your family members know that you're sober now, then when you go into a family situation, is it going to be awkward? Probably, because you don't know how to interact with these people without, lubricant, right? So that's going to be a challenge. But everything is a challenge because this is a whole new way of going through life. So when it comes to work, I feel like our work needs to know, not because it's their business, but because it helps us. Because then we have people that know, like if something comes up, if we're in a really uncomfortable situation, if we're being triggered, if we're, it's just good to be able to go to them and say, hey, I'm having a moment, I need you to take over, or hey, I need to take a breath. Whatever it is, like if they know what's going on with you, they're better able to support you. That's not going to be the case for every management team. But in my experience, when I tell people that I'm sober and that I used to, do XYZ, they're like, yeah, I wish I could do that. Or yeah, I tried that once and it was just too hard. Or my dog died, or I got in a car accident, or I had surgery and started taking pills, or, the list goes on and on. But a lot of people really wish that they could get to the point where they got serious about being sober. So if you're getting serious about being sober, congratulations. I'm super stoked for you. And just know, like, hey, it is so challenging, but it is so worth it. So I offer this to you to hopefully give you just a leg up on this journey, and let you know that the more people that you let know, the better your chances are at getting through that one day where you maybe feel a little bit weak. So your regulars, they can support you. Your coworkers and your management staff, they can support you. I definitely, like the bars that I went to, if I still ended up going to bars, like to go and eat or to go and visit friends or whatever, like those people needed to know. And the people that I did drink with at those places, they needed to know so that they didn't try to talk me into having a drink. If they tried to do that now, it would be like those guys, off the golf course. It would just be a no big deal. But at first it was like, what are you trying to do? Kill me? Because, at the end of my drinking, like, I don't want to live anymore. So to drink is to die. So it was pretty intense, and it was pretty overwhelming when people would try to talk me out of being sober and into partying with them. I took it really personally, and now I just know that that is 100% about them. That's where they're at. How I receive it, that's totally on me. And bartending sober is not for everyone, and it's not for every stage of your recovery. So a lot of people brand new sober probably don't need to go get behind a bar. Like if you're still wishing that you could have that drink and you're fighting it every second, maybe take a beat and get, a different job for a little while. For me, I wanted no part in it. I did not want that stuff in my body. So if a craving came up, I was disgusted with it. There was not one part of me that wanted to give into that. There's a saying, I recover loudly so that other people don't have to suffer in silence. And that's always been really special and dear to my heart because it's true. It was someone else saying that they were going to get help that made me realize that I maybe could go and get help. And if that one person hadn't have planted that tiny seed, I wouldn't have thought about, calling my insurance. I wouldn't have thought about trying to get into detox because everyone around me was telling me that I wasn't that bad. I shook every morning. I threw up regularly. I could not go an hour without having a shot or two of vodka. Like, I was sick. I drink straight room temperature Tito's vodka all throughout every single day. And people told me that I wasn't that bad. No one knows what you're going through behind closed doors. Maybe you're not that bad, but maybe you just don't want to do it anymore. Maybe you just binge on the weekends. Whatever it is, though, if you're sick of it, if you're ready for something different, then that's all that matters. Other people's opinion of whether it's time for you or not does not matter, because if other people want you to get sober and you're not ready, guess what? It's probably not going to stick. It wasn't until I was so completely fed up with my very own self that I was able to make a change. So back to the point of secret sobriety. I don't think that the checker at the grocery store needs to know that you're sober, but if you guys start chatting and you want to bring it up, I think the more times you say out loud, I'm sober, I don't drink, I'm in recovery, or I'm working on myself, or I'm eating better, or whatever it is, reaffirm that. Say it out loud. Say it to the universe. Say it to the checker. Say it to your boss. Say it to your regular. Say it to your dog. But say it and believe it. Let that become your reality, because we don't change overnight. We can want change overnight, but the actual process, that takes time, and it takes work, and it takes confirmation and dedication, and those things, they're really hard to muster. I don't think that we develop our drinking problems overnight, right? It's years of practice and building up tolerance, and we cultivated our drinking habits. And so when we're ready to change those habits, we need to cultivate new habits and new ways of thinking and speaking and being. So I personally feel like it's important to be honest about where you're at, no matter who you're talking to. I don't think that there's an exception. So do you need to bring it up randomly? No. But if it comes up, I say bring it up. It comes up for me at work all the time. And it's not me just randomly blurting out, but the subject comes up. And I have no problem talking about where I'm at to customers. As far as talking to customers about where they're at, the only time that ever comes up is when I say, yeah, I'm sober, and I host a sober podcast, and I help people recover themselves and their lives and help them heal and find joy. They're like, oh man, I wish I could do that. And that opens that door to where I say, well, do you wish or do you want to? And then I can, lay it out. I have had regulars meet me at meetings. I can't say I know of any that are still sober, but still, it's something, it's a seed planted. But I feel like my transparency and my honesty and me living in my integrity and being on the inside who I show I am on the outside, I feel like that gives other people hope. I feel like I get to be a lighthouse for people that are still out there, because I found my way home to myself, and I feel like I can shine this light to help other people do the same, but I can't do that if I'm anonymous. I can't do that if I just sit and wait for people to come to me. I put it out there into the universe, into like the frequency that, it's here. And if you want it, it wants you to. There's a part of yourself that's just been waiting for you to come home to it. But there's usually a whole lot of mess that we've got to sift through to get to that part of ourselves. So it's easier to do with help and with community and with support and with non-judgmental, loving kindness and compassion. And it's really hard to give that to ourselves because we're usually filled with shame and guilt and regret and fear and trauma. So it takes a village to start sorting through those things. And you don't have to do it overnight. Like I said, you didn't get this way overnight, and you don't have to become a totally different person overnight either. So they say to do it one day at a time, and that's all you can do. But I say, for me, I'm sober. I don't drink. I'm in recovery. It's been almost 3 years. When I know the day count, I say how many days it's been. And there are other people that come up to the bar and they tell me how many days it's been for them. And it's an awesome little secret celebration between them and us, or me and them. The guy sitting next to them doesn't need to know, but if he says, "Oh, what's that?" It's up to that person whether or not they want to share. But I personally will always share, because anyone that wants to hear about sobriety, or is considering, or is interested in, or has a family member who needs some recovery or some support or whatever, there are people that shine their light for other people. So yeah, my sobriety is not a secret. I've never been anonymous. I don't plan on being anonymous. And I'm not saying that it's not okay for you to be anonymous, but especially those of us that are behind the bar, that are brand new, I say you already have enough secrets. I don't think that this wonderful thing that you're doing needs to be one of them. If you're struggling, I just want you to know that you are going to get through this. And I am so glad that you are here. I'm sending you love tonight. If you would like to hear something on the podcast, if you would like to be a guest, if there's a question that you have, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook at Brandy Kelly. On Facebook, there's a Sober Bartender Facebook group. So feel free to join that and start up any kind of conversation. If you're looking for support, guidance, just, somebody to chat with, it's there. And then on Instagram at the Sober Bartender podcast, and on YouTube at the Sober Bartender. Yeah. So if you enjoyed this show, please take time to like and subscribe. If you subscribe and follow, then you will get notifications when new episodes come out, which is every Wednesday morning. And yeah, if you really enjoyed the show, I invite you to take time to rate and review. That helps us get seen, that helps us get heard in the algorithm, that helps carry this message to the people that need to hear it most. So as always, I will talk to you next Wednesday. I love you guys.